All right, I'm joined now on the phone by Mr. John Wetton. Welcome to Firebrand Rock Radio.
Thank you very much indeed. Very nice to be here.
Well, it's great to have you on the show, and must I start off by saying what a fabulous album Gravitas is.
Thank you very much indeed. Yeah, we're very pleased with it, and it seems the reaction so far has been overwhelmingly good. So, yeah, very chuffed.
Well, obviously, it's got the classic Asia sound. Let's face it. If anybody hears that without sort of seeing the writing on the cover or anything, they'll know instantly who it is that's playing. However, there is quite a modern twist to it as well, I feel.
Yeah, we went for the kind of less is more approach. I mean, we tend to go with a wall of sound anyway, which the new guitar player has blended right into. You know, he loves that kind of stuff. So, but there's no kind of over floweriness on it as well. It's very much straight ahead rock. You know. I think it sounds good. It's got all the trademarks. It's the sort of heavy drums and the vocal sound and the keyboards stuff. Yeah, you know, it's identifiably Asia. Yeah.
I think Wall of Sound is a perfect description because it's an all-in sort of enveloping sound when you listen to the album. Yeah,
and if you go back to 1982, that's exactly the way it was then. You know, the guitar, the keyboards and the vocals presented this sort of united front, you know, which, when you think back to 1982, what was on the radio at that time was kind of Flock of Seagulls and stuff like that. So it sounded quite big on the radio, and I think that's what a big factor in its kind of commercial appeal at that time. So we've never really changed that much. Also, the subject matter of the songs is pretty much the same. It's a kind of intensely personal lyric vocal line over a quite bombastic melodic instrumental. So, you know, we still do the same thing today that we did 32 years ago. We just can't help that. That comes with the territory.
I mean, the industry's obviously changed an awful lot in those 32 years.
Yes, it has. Yes.
Do you think that maybe the industry is now finally getting to grips with the way things have changed regarding the sales of music, or has it got a long way to go yet?
Well, I think I hate to say it, but I think that you're looking at probably in another 10 years there won't be any CDs around. There might still be some vinyl about somewhere.
Hope so.
Yeah, me too. I'd hate for it to cease as as an entity, because lots of people like me like to unpackage. I mean, this is a sort of corny thing to say, but they like to undo the package and sort of see the lyrics and see who did what. And if I look at the way my son consumes music, he's 15, and he couldn't care less who produced it. He couldn't care less about the sleeve or anything. You know, he just downloads what he wants, and 9 times out of 10 he doesn't know who produced it, who played on it. It's just the artist. That's it. You know. And I think that's a bit sad.
Absolutely. Well, I'm glad you brought vinyl up, because I bring it up in almost every interview, and I get sort of people sort of chuckle and laugh at me, because I am a massive vinyl fan.
Yeah,
and
me too. Well,
to me, the fact
the first time you play a vinyl album, it's the best sound you can possibly get. You know, much better than vinyl than digital. It's got a lot more harmonic value in there and everything. It's not just giving you fooling your ear into thinking that it's hearing the real thing.
Absolutely.
The vinyl is giving you the real thing, you know, the full Monty in stereo. So it's very rich, and I think it's luscious. I think vinyl's fantastic. But
and of course, what is satisfying
with digital stuff, but I think, obviously digital stuff will still exist, but it'll only be in download form. You know, the actual physical, I think you'll have to go to vinyl shops to get that. Well, that's okay. But I mean, you know, the way that the industry has changed now is that if you can strap on a guitar or play a drum kit and get out on stage, people actually will come around the block to see you.
Yeah.
So that is a good news. That's the good news about the way the music industry has changed. Bad news is that records just don't sell anymore.
No.
And the piracy is just a joke. So
well,
I hope it doesn't spread. I suppose it will, but I hope it doesn't spread to film, because I really enjoy going to the cinema myself, you know.
Well, I think the problem is a lot of young people they don't realise that that illegally downloading a track or what have you, that they're actually taking somebody's bread and butter.
Oh yeah, it's theft. It's theft. There's no doubt about that. But they don't see it that way.
No.
Also, there's the same as if you do the same with a DVD, you're crippling the film industry in this country particularly. But I don't see any way around it at the moment. It started off with people just pirating cassettes, didn't it? And now look at what's happened now. It's unbelievable. So I guess we just have to look at a different way to consume music in the future. I just don't know. I'm still with vinyl myself. That's my last hope for this.
Well, on that front, it is very, very pleasing to me the fact that you have the artwork by Roger Dean, which of course we're going back to the classic vinyl album covers.
Yeah, absolutely. They're much better sized for viewing Roger Dean's artwork.
Oh, I mean, I'm a massive fan of Roger Dean's artwork, have been for many, many years.
And you see the real thing, it's the size of a wall. I mean, it's massive. It's frightening when you see an original cover on in its oily form. It looks fantastic. It's huge, absolutely massive. I always thought that they'd be on a little canvas on an easel, right in front of him. It's huge. It's quite awesome to see the finished article.
And to have that on your wall would be just the ultimate, really. I think,
yes, it would. Yes, it would. But I know how much those things go for.
I think I'll wait for lottery win for that.
It's way out of my league. I can tell you that. Yes. And the original Asia Dragon, the first cover.
Yeah.
I don't know. That was on sale in San Francisco for like hundreds of thousands of dollars. It was just ludicrous. I don't know. But I don't know. They are very, very beautiful when you see them in the flesh, though. Fantastic.
Going back to the band, obviously you mentioned the new guitarist, Sam
Coulson, his name is.
And I believe that he was recommended to you by none other than Paul Gilbert.
Paul Gilbert, indeed. Well, when we were faced with getting a new guitar player, and I'm going back about 18 months now.
Right.
All the signs were there, and then eventually Steve announced in San Francisco. I knew a few days before that, but he announced to the rest of the entourage that he was going to be leaving the band and would be still playing with Yes, but he just couldn't do the two things,
Right.
So in the interim, I called up my favourite guitar player, who was Steve Lukather, who is Steve Lukather, and I said, because he's got a little bit of history with the band. He played on Days Like These in 1990.
Yeah.
89. So he has some kind of history with the band, and when I spoke to him, he said, well, I'd love to do it. I'm very, very flattered. Thank you for asking me, but I can't. I've just got too many commitments, and my heart's in Toto, and I've got lots of stuff to do. So we went, okay, thank you very much. Next candidate, really, we thought, was Paul Gilbert, because he was Carl's favourite guitar player. So we went to Paul, and he said the same thing as Steve Lukather did, that he was entrenched in what he was doing, very flattered, and thank you very much, but can't do it. So we said to him, well, if you can't, do you know a man who can? And he said, yes, I do, I know two. He recommended, there was an American guy, very, very good, very, very good, and Sam, who was from the Midlands, very young, unknown virtually. I mean, he's done a couple of things, but mainly he's a guitar teacher.
Right.
But we looked at the YouTubes and did our background study, and the thing that really clinched it was that he has no history. He's a blank canvas. He would gladly play the parts as well as blistering solos, so he wouldn't be a prima donna in that respect.
Okay.
And he's a happily married, non-smoking, non-drinking guy, and that was big in his favour. I'm not saying anything about the other guy at all, but that was what we were after. The last thing we wanted was another train wreck like me, because
you wanted a bit of stability.
Now, but for a long, long time I was not a day at the beach, I can tell you that. So everything was in his favour, and we met him eventually, and almost on the spot he got the job, because he's just a very, very affable guy from the Midlands, and he can play really, really well. Fantastic player. But at the same time, he's prepared to be a part of the band, and he plays the structured parts of the song too, which is another thing that we needed to do.
Of course.
Yeah. So he was, he ticked all the boxes, put it that way.
Well, he certainly seems to fit in well. I mean, there's again, the flow with the guitar on this album. Again, classic Asian, as I said at the start, with that modern twist.
Yeah.
I mean, he's listening to sort of the more acoustical parts of the songs. His playing really is quite superb.
Yes, it is. Yeah, no, he's a glorious guitar player, no doubt about that. You just have to let him go. He in the studio, he'd play 3 or 4 solos, and each one would be incredibly difficult to choose. Each one was to be a master. So we're really pleased we got the right guy. I think that when you're that old saying that when the student is ready, the master will appear, or sort of, and vice versa. If you're in that spot where you really need someone, bang, there they are. They're just right in front of you. And he's tremendous. He's worked out really well. And I say, 18 months now since he's been in this band.
Yeah.
And in that time, we've done loads of gigs. Really, we did a German tour. We did a live show with the Plovdiv Opera Orchestra at the Roman Amphitheatre in Plovdiv. It was fantastic. We did Sweden Rock with his second gig. Sweden Rock.
Wow!
Massive.
It is huge. Absolutely enormous.
Huge. It's a great festival. We wanted to do it for years,
right.
And it's funny, when just before Steve announced that he was leaving, we were on tour, and the news came in from our agent that we finally got it. We've got Sweden Rock. They said June 7th, I think, we'd be playing Sweden Rock, and like 3 guys in the band, myself, Carl, and Jeff, we were sort of whooping and high-fiving, and there was one guy who wasn't, and that was Steve. I realised, but at that point that he wasn't seeing that as
right. Yeah.
He wasn't looking that far into the future. So I knew that something was wrong. But in fact, it worked out perfectly, because we got Sam in, and he was like a duck in water, really, at Sweden Rock. It's kind of more his métier than it would have been for Steve. So, it's a great festival, really. It's so incredibly well organised. It's just wonderful. But a pretty awesome way to start your career with the band.
I was going to say, I mean, that is being dropped in at the deep end, isn't it?
It is indeed. We managed to squeeze in one warm-up gig at Wavendon Stables the night before, which was to a kind of, whatever that holds, about 300, 400 people.
Right.
And it was a rabidly kind of partisan audience, which was wonderful, because that's exactly what he needed, to get the confidence to the next day we flew to Sweden. Actually, we flew to Denmark, and then we went over that bridge,
right, yeah, the bridge.
The bridge. The bridge. I almost expected to see Saga, Then we went over that bridge and into Sweden, and about 2 hours later we were at the festival site. And he did well, came through with flying colours, And after that, we went back to doing smaller gigs again in Germany and Switzerland, Austria, and we ended up in Copenhagen, which is just fabulous, So that all of the gigs went superbly. He fitted in well and we started at that point. We started recording the new album, couldn't be more pleased with him. He's great, and the reaction to the album has been so good that it's kind of floored us a bit, really, because we weren't expecting the reaction to be so positive. That's great. Love it.
Well, especially say after, and I don't want to hark on about it because it makes me feel old as well, but I mean, after 32 years to still get that kind of response, and let's face it, Asia has got such a loyal fan base. Yeah,
we do. We're very, very fortunate in that our fan base is we can go to virtually any country and play to the same number of people. It's not huge, but virtually any country in the world, in South America, North America, Japan, Europe, the UK, we can get a good, loyal audience in there. So it's great. We're very, very fortunate. As I say, there are lots of bands around who've probably been as popular as we have and can't work now.
This is
for
true.
whatever reason. So yeah, we're lucky. We're well aware of that as well. For the three gentlemen who are slightly older than Sam, we count our blessings.
Well, speaking of the UK, obviously doing a couple of gigs this year. Are you going to do more gigs later on to cover this album?
Yes, we are. So the answer to that is yes.
Good.
The logistics of that have to be worked out by managers and agents and stuff. We don't choose where we play.
Right.
That's a popular misconception, is that we decide where we're going to play, and that's not true. We're not in a position where we can. We have a manager and an agent who will present us with several possibilities.
Okay.
And, in an extreme case, if I said, I really don't want to play there, I've had a bad experience every time I played there, then we could drop that. Or if one of us said, I really want to play there, then we could probably accommodate that. But in general, we don't get to choose. What we say is, if we put it out that we want to tour in, let's say, September, then the agents will say, okay, well, we go to the local promoters. The local promoters will say, okay, we'll take them on the 26th of September. And, that's the way a tour gets booked these days for people like us. So we don't get to choose. We wanted to play 2 gigs before we go to Japan, particularly Holmfirth, because we've cancelled Holmfirth twice. And
right.
There's nothing worse than cancelling a show. It's just... even though it's legitimate, the reasons for both cancellations were legitimate, there's still a bit of a stigma there, because when we went back to one of the venues and said, we know we cancelled twice, so we'd like to play here, just to kind of, the guy said, well, I don't want you, because you cancelled twice, that's kind of taboo, so we had to really do some big asks of him, and we're playing Holmfirth, and we're playing Malvern before we go to Japan, I think on the 11th and 12th of June. The 12th of June is my birthday, it's my 65th birthday, and that's the day we play Holmfirth, so I'm looking forward to that. That'll be great. The next day we fly to Japan.
And of course, Japanese audiences, well, I mean, that's just a different experience altogether.
They love us. They're very, very loyal. They've been with us for a long, long time. They've been with me for a long, long time. 1976 was the first time I played in Japan, and I'm still with the same promoter today.
Wow.
The next tour was booked by the same promoter that booked me in 1976, and that is phenomenal. That's a long time. That's nearly 40 years to be with the same guy. So that's the kind of way they look at it in Japan. It's kind of...
It's very much a loyalty thing.
Long term, in for the long haul, So I love that myself. And I think they're going to love Sam, and they're going to like the new album. So, yeah, what's not to like about that one? Yeah.
Absolutely. And going on from this, I mean, obviously the new album is literally just out in the UK, and is just about to come out in the US, obviously on Frontiers. Surely it really must galvanise the band into looking forward to diving in and recording another album in the next year or so.
Yeah, I think going back to 1982, that album, the first Asia record, was so successful we could have toured that for 4 or 5 years.
Right.
And what we did was we went straight into the studio, and the next year there was another one out, which didn't do quite as well. I mean, it's very, very difficult to top.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, that was, you really set yourself a bit of a climb.
One of the problems was, even though we'd all been around the block a few times as individuals with our previous bands, we were still a young band in terms of we didn't know each other. We knew each other socially. We didn't know each other as a musical entity. And so when our first album came out, we kind of got dumped off at the penthouse instead of the first floor, getting the elevator from the basement, we came out of the penthouse.
Gotcha.
So we never got to do that organic development that a rock band does, going up and down the M1, playing little places and stuff. We got thrown into sort of arenas like within months of the first album coming out, even though we only had 40 minutes worth of material.
That's staggering.
Now we have this wealth of material. We have 4 albums since the Reformation. We have 3 before we broke up the first time. So we have a lot of material we can choose from. We don't need to borrow any ELP, King Crimson stuff anymore. We can choose from our own material. And we're getting that opportunity now, really late in the day, but we're getting that opportunity to grow and develop as a rock band should do. And it's lovely. Actually, it's really lovely. We're kind of finding our feet even now. It's extraordinary. It's really good. We're finding out a bit about each other and what it's like to be in a band and grow up together. It's amazing. So I'm really, really pleased about that, because we didn't get a chance first time round. It wasn't fair. So we're gonna enjoy this next year. It gives us 18 months until we have to go into the studio again.
Right.
So we're going to enjoy that and go out on the road and learn to be a rock band again.
I mean, talking about material, yourself and Carl and Jeff, the amount of material you guys have released, either it solo or in a group, is just staggering.
It is, yeah. There's an awful lot there, but it seems that every time I walk into a room with Jeff Downes, we come out with a tune at the end of it. It's and I don't know how that happened, but I'm not questioning it. Because
no, absolutely not.
It happens so infrequently in life that I'm just grateful for that. We have a great relationship. Carl, also we have a kind of a camaraderie now for the 3 of us, particularly. I know Sam is really being drawn into this, but for the 3 of us, we have an armor plating which we never had when we first came out. We were open to attack on all sides when we first formed, and there were lots of people within our record company management who were sniping at us, and it's very easy to we were easy prey. We were very easily separated and divide and conquer, and this time around we're not we're rock solid. This core of 3 people is we have a very, very solid bond. I'd be amazed if anyone could drive a wedge between us, because we have a very close personal relationship now.
And obviously for Sam, I mean, for the development of his career within the band and just musically, to be working with you 3 guys is probably for him a dream come true. I would hope
so. I mean, if I weren't in this band, I'd want to be in it. I've really liked the way the chemistry between the 4 members of this band. I'm very, very proud of what we've just done. The new album, I think, is terrific. I was thinking this afternoon, in the months after an album gets released, I start to hear it again a lot,
Yeah.
And I start to think about ways it could have been better, and there's always ways that the album could be better. There's no way that it's ever perfect. But this time round, I'm thinking, well, yeah, we could have put another solo in there. We could have put this there, that, but it doesn't really matter. The general idea comes across, and it's a great album. It just we could have worked another 6 months and put those little finishing touches in and lost the overall sound.
I was going to say, there's a real danger to overproduce an album.
Yeah, when you go into that amount when you've got that amount of time and money to spend, it's very easy to go over the top. And when you lose sight of the original track, then you're sort of dealing with details, and you miss the big picture. That's the trouble.
I was actually back to the album at work today, funny enough, on the run up to chatting to you, and I was trying to think to myself, right, what are the standout tracks for me? And every time I play it, my choices change.
Ah, good. That's good.
Yeah,
That's good.
Which for me is always a sign of a good album. I mean, I've listened to the album twice today, And this morning, when I put it on when I first got to work, funny enough, and the tracks that stood out this morning was The Closer I Get and Russian Dolls. Yet this afternoon, it was completely different. As Joe DiMaggio's Glove, and then the track Heaven Help Me with the two that
that's
that
my
grabbed me.
favourite right now. Heaven Help Me Now.
Is it really?
Yeah, and first of all, it was the same for me. I started off when the album's finished and I could hear it properly. My favourite was Valkyrie, without a doubt, and then I went to Nyctophobia, and now I've transferred everything onto Heaven Help Me Now. It's my favourite track. If I get in the car now, that's the first one that I'll play. So I don't know, it may change again, but I think that's a sign of a good album.
I totally think that's a sign of a good album, and it's a sign that the album just grows and grows every time you listen to it, which is exactly what you need.
Yeah, I think so. Well, thank you very much. That's great.
Well, yeah. John, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show. I've been an Asia fan for, as we're talking about years ago now. Since the first album, I will put my hand up on that, and it's been a real pleasure chatting to you today.
Thank you very much indeed. And hopefully we'll still be around, even if it's just on vinyl. But
I hope so.
Speak to you in the future.
Thank you very much, John.
Have a great evening.
And you. Thanks now.
Take care, mate.
Bye-bye.